Welcome to Gen Z Hoops, the Gen Z basketball, coaching, and sports business show.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Gen Z Hoops podcast. Today, I'm joined by IMG basketball assistant coach Elijah Moreno-Winston. Coach Elijah, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing really good, man. Really excited to be on with you and have this conversation tonight.
Of course, man. Well, let's jump in. Let's just jump into it, man. So, can you talk a little bit about where your passion for the game of basketball first started?
Yeah, I think it started out pretty young. I didn't come from a sports family. So my mom kind of put me in basketball and like t-ball and soccer when I was like in the little league. And she said the one thing that I always wanted to stick to was basketball. And I think from there, my love for the game kind of just grew. I had older cousins that were like brothers who always used to come around. So, it started just playing in the driveway with them. And they were like 5 or 6 years older than me. So like for me to beat them or even compete, I had to work on my game separately. So wanting to beat them, wanting to be better than them is kind of what drove me, and then just kept falling in love with the process and that game. And then kind of just as I got older, became my peace of mind, my therapy, something that I could go to every day to, work on my craft and keep the everyday stress of, middle school, high school off of you. And, something that just called my name every day, worked on my craft. And every kid kind of has those NBA Game 7 scenarios in their head, and you do that in the driveway. Like when cars are driving by, you try to get in your bag and put shots up. So my love for the game has just grown from, adolescence, childhood, and being around my family, just competing.
Who would you say your favorite player was and like biggest inspiration was growing up?
My biggest inspiration growing up, um, I'll probably say is my older cousin. He was the one that kind of first, I guess, caressed my love for the game of basketball, and he was like the first person that I wanted to be like. He was very well known in our area, had a, good high school career, went on to play college basketball. And he was the first college basketball player that I had known. I remember, it's funny thinking back about it now, but they used to have the college basketball game. He went to a small Division 3 school. He wasn't like, a highly touted recruiter or anything like that. But to me, in my eyes, as a 5, 6, 7-year-old, he was a really good three-point shooter. So he was like the best shooter I had ever seen in my life. And I remember when he was going to college, I tried to look up his college on the NCAA sports game, but it's only Division 1 schools on there and stuff like that. So I don't think I've even ever told him that, but he was kind of the one that I think first inspired me and my love for the game. When you talk about, my favorite player that probably most people know would probably be LeBron. Definitely, his journey. I'm a LeBron fan. The Last Dance almost got me though, but then
Really?
I had to think about it because when LeBron's all said and done and they drop his,
That doc, man.
the doc's gonna be crazy. So I'm definitely, my favorite player is LeBron, and I think he's definitely inspired me. Not somebody that I, tried to model my game after because I did play, but definitely somebody that I looked up to just on and off the court.
I don't know. I can totally agree with you on that note. Like, I'm a kid. I grew up in Queens, New York. So around the time I started watching basketball, like the first or second grade, like Melo was like the biggest thing in New
Yeah.
York, right? And it was
Uh-huh.
just like past that like Linsanity phase had just
Oh,
happened around like
yeah. Yep.
2011, 2012 time. And so I'm going like this kid I remember one of my classmates, he was like the ball boy for the Jeremy Lin game against Kobe. So he brings in like the newspaper and all that stuff for like show and tell. So now I'm
Mhm.
thinking like Melo and the Knicks are like the best thing on earth. So I go back and my mom's like a really big like basketball junkie. She never really
Okay.
like forced it on me, like, but she would always
Uh-huh.
watch the games because she was like, if
Yeah.
you want to play, like I wanted because you want to play, I'm not gonna like make you do it or anything like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I come in like all hype about like the Knicks and Melo and stuff like that. And ironically, the Heat were playing the Knicks like that weekend. So she's like, okay, we're gonna watch this game. All I remember was LeBron picking the pass like when J.R. Smith threw a bad pass and then like throwing it down the other end. And that was my guy like ever since. I'm like the biggest Heat fan ever.
Yeah, no, I definitely am a big Braun fan and followed him. And it's crazy. I'm originally from Chicago, so he used to have like crazy battles with Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah and I remember like the famous press conference when it was like, what's there in Cleveland besides the Cavaliers and LeBron? Like, who wants to be here? So definitely grew up in that area. I was rooting for Derrick Rose, but still at heart, LeBron guy.
Oh, 100%. So you mentioned you played basketball. Can you
Mhm.
talk us through like your playing career from high school to even the college level and basically how you developed over time and how and just take us through those experiences?
Okay, yeah, for sure. Look, I'm from originally, like I said, from the suburbs of Chicago, about 45 minutes to an hour out, west suburbs, a little town called Oswego High School. That's where I went to school all 4 years. We were kind of a football powerhouse. So we had football players that, went Division 1 that would play basketball, great athletes. Had a really good time there. Um, Played sophomore as a freshman, varsity as a sophomore through my senior year. Ended up not having kind of any offers for sure, but not a lot of interest, D3 roster spots, things of that nature. So I was looking into junior college because one of my best friends and a player that played the previous year went to a pretty prominent Division 3 JUCO called Rockford College, Rock Valley College in Rockford, Illinois. And they kind of started recruiting me, but ultimately I ended up going post grad. I did a postgraduate year in Woodstock, Connecticut for
Okay.
Woodstock Academy,
Yep.
Coach Tony Bergeron, and I learned all about the New England basketball scene because it is definitely crazy. There's a lot of good hoopers up there. There's a lot of very good basketball that definitely opened my eyes that I had never known about prior, really, thinking about Midwest basketball, traveling to AAU tournaments in, Kansas and Indianapolis, Fort Wayne, Missouri, things of that nature. So it was a very different experience for me, but it definitely helped me grow as a player. And I think those moments obviously helped me as a coach too. Ending my career, high school career, technically in New England, a lot of those schools ended up recruiting me. So my freshman year, I ended up going to Springfield College, which is the birthplace of
Yep.
basketball Hall of Fames in Springfield, Massachusetts. And I did transfer a lot, not as much as these kids are transferring nowadays. And I would like to say that I felt like they were, pretty strong reasons at the time. I always tried to make sure that I wasn't running from adversity. Not like, oh, I got benched, so I hate the
Yeah.
coach. I just don't want to be there. But for personal reasons or whatever may have happened, our coaching changes were usually pretty big for me in my career, unfortunately, then also being a COVID kid. So I went to Springfield College my freshman year, Nichols College my fall semester, my sophomore year. As I'm coming into to Nichols College, the coach that recruited me takes a job at the Division 2 Assumption. So leaving a college, going to a college where there's a new coach that doesn't necessarily know me and didn't recruit me, didn't want to waste a year of eligibility and put myself in the same position that I thought I was leaving. So I stayed there for a semester, didn't play, and ended up transferring to Worcester State College for about a semester and a half. Then COVID hit. And being from the Chicagoland area, I decided to come back home. Me and my family decided that was what was best because in New England, Boston area, they shut down all sports,
Yeah.
school online. Um, and I remember coming back and transferring to North Central College, which is in Naperville, Illinois, about 45 minutes to an hour outside of Chicago. They were having a season. They were doing class online. They wanted me. They had known about me in high school, kind of recruited me then. I had visited them prior when I was transferring, but never ended up committing there. So finally, it kind of was a full circle moment coming back home. And, I think it all ended up kind of working out there. And really just made me the player, the man. I'm a dad, husband, kind of all those experiences tied together, made me who I am today. And I wouldn't change it for anything. Everything happens for a reason, and God had a purpose and a plan for me. So very grateful for all those experiences.
That's funny you mentioned that you played in New England. I also went to prep school in New England. I went
Okay.
to Salisbury School. It's like a Class A school. It's like right next
Yeah,
to like
yeah.
Hotchkiss. Yeah, and it's crazy that you went there. Like you were around like during that whole like COVID period. I remember
Mhm.
we had like shut down. We couldn't go like shoot in the gym. We used to have to go out in like the outdoor courts, like in the
Yeah,
trenches, like all the way back by the woods and shoot. And then we'd have to wear masks all over the place, and there were like certain exits and entrances that you can only
it was a
go through.
crazy time. But
But you
yeah,
put
me and my college roommate guys and friends, like they shut down the season, but I mean, we would go to the park and play. Like
Mhm.
Worcester, Massachusetts has Holy Cross, Assumption.
Yeah.
There's like three Division 3 schools and like a junior college. So like we used to all go to one park and had this big light, and we used to play all night long, like and just have mixed runs. And it was like those are some of like my fondest playground memories were in college because of that. There's nowhere else to play basketball. We can't get in the gym anywhere.
Mhm.
And we're just, outside hooping at the park, like praying for safety, man. Like,
Mhm.
hoping COVID doesn't come and get us, but the love of the game just none of us could kind of stay away. It started small, like me and one other guy just trying to get shots up, and then grew into something where we're kind of having full on runs, like full college teams were basically there.
Our school had like rules like where you couldn't play what do you call it, like pickup or anything like
Mhm.
contact wise. They would have us like if we were in the gym, they'd create this thing called athletic pods, right? And it was like one guy
Yeah.
at like each basket doing like shooting drills. So we'd sneak off and go like behind like in the woods where like that outdoor court was. It was a horrible court. They were like triple rims, but like we would all play like pickup out there and
That's
stuff
what
like
you
that.
gotta do. You gotta do.
Yeah, man. But the worst thing when the season finally rolled around, because our coach like scheduled like scrimmages, we used to
Hmm.
have like masks up. They'd stop the
Oh
game if your
yeah.
mask wasn't up to here. We'd have mask breaks and all that stuff.
It was a crazy time. So yeah, that semester that I transferred to North Central after Boston kind of shut things down and we played, we definitely had to do mass, had to get tested all the time. So it was just crazy kind of being a college basketball player during that COVID time. And like I said, everything happened for a reason, but I was really happy at Worcester State. Had a lot of good friends, had a coach who really believed in me. Even helped. I think I kind of started my coaching journey there because when I came over, I came over halfway through the year and I was kind of just the team manager, wanted to travel with the team, wanted to get used to the coaches, get used to my teammates. But I had learned from my freshman year in college, Springfield had just came off a Final Four, and the best player on that team, his name was Jake Ross. He plays overseas now. Like he was so welcoming and very friendly to me, and he was really involved in the recruiting process as a junior, going into his senior year. So he kind of showed me the ropes of like if you want to build a good program and have a good culture, like you as players should be involved in the recruiting too. And so I really took that with me when I went to Worcester State and would ask the coach, like, if you want me to hit guys up on Instagram, talk to guys about the experience, talk about why I came here, do help on visits, whatever the case may be, please just let me know. And we ended up having like a really good recruiting class. And that next year after I left, they actually ended up winning conference. And me and him talked, and he was like, honestly, you weren't on a coaching staff or had anything to do with this year, but the work and the help that you had last season with this recruiting class has really, paid dividends and helped us, win the conference this year. So that was really cool to hear. And I think that's kind of where my coaching journey started.
So that leads me actually into my next question, to be honest with you. So you mentioned getting into your coaching journey. Let's talk more about like what that transition was like from a player to now like a mentor and more of a coach.
Mhm. Yeah, I honestly never thought I was going to be a coach. Like after I graduated with my bachelor's in marketing and business administration, and I got a job. I moved to Tampa, Bradenton, Florida, Tampa area. Got a job in Tampa before I even moved out here, so I didn't know. I'm basically living in Sarasota, and Tampa's like an hour away, but I got the job in Tampa, so I'm like driving an hour every day. I'm in an office. I'm an IT recruiter and it's a 9 to 5. And I hated it, honestly. I was, in college, I had a part-time job. Like I worked at Nike. I worked at Foot Locker at the mall. I was kind of a sneakerhead. So like, I just didn't like the office, the vibe, sitting down all day. I was making hundreds of calls a day. At that time, I started waiting tables and then got a job on the beach. And I had some friends of mine that were in this men's league that I ended up joining. And it's crazy to say, but one of them had worked at IMG, and two of them, one was a like pretty prominent trainer in this area. It was a pretty good men's league, and my playing career had just ended, so I'm still trying to get bumped with high level competition. And there were just a lot of basketball coaches and a lot of one coach from IMG, a trainer, and they were like, like you should think about coaching. I'm like coaching, like I just ended my playing career. I'm not. That was almost like an insult. What you mean I should think about coaching? I'm still trying to get buckets. And it was just kind of something that I had to think about. And then when it all kind of came came down to it, a couple months later, I brought the idea back up because I kind of just prayed on it. And over the next couple months, God kind of just showed me the signs. So the transition from player to coach is, it's complicated in my personal experience because I felt like I still had a lot to give to the playing career that I didn't end up having. Um, but that relevant experience from playing, I think, helped me transition into being a coach. But never being coached before definitely is different than not playing. You have different impacts on the game, so it's definitely a transition. But it's a transition that is pretty. It flows. You have experiences if you've been a player before.
So you're currently the assistant coach at IMG Academy.
Hmm.
What actually led you to this opportunity? Like what how did the job actually come about?
Yeah, so that's actually the funny story too. So the friend that I spoke about in my men's league, who first kind of recommended me to start coaching. He was kind of asked that, and then I just used kind of the rest of my basketball network that I made in this area from kind of serving. I ended up applying for like a seasonal summer coaching position, and it's funny because like hundreds of people from all over the world kind of apply, and I ended up meeting the director of lacrosse at the restaurant that I'm serving at. And he's like the camp director who's the one that does the hiring for the summer coaches. He's like, I know him pretty well. Um, I liked the way you talk and whatnot. Like I've served him. He liked our interactions. He was like, I'm gonna help you out, and I'm gonna introduce you to him. And so he kind of helps me get an interview. I do a phone interview, and like I'm nervous as heck. I don't really know what I'm kind of talking about because I've never done like a coaching interview before. I remember him asking me what my coaching philosophy was. And, at the time, like I had no idea. So I just throw out like I was a defensive oriented player. So I guess like defense is what's, super important to me. So I thought I did terrible on it. But I see that they sent me an email because I applied online that there's a job fair coming up in a couple of days. And, he doesn't tell me to go to it, nothing like that. But I go to the job fair and I go and I introduce myself in person. I talk to him. He's kind of surprised to see me. But at a job fair setting, there's a lot of other people in the mix. So I don't just, stick around and try to just talk his ear off. So I start looking at other jobs at IMG, like our dorm life, mentor life, maybe even teaching, because I had heard just trying to get my foot in the door really. And before I leave, I asked, the camp director, like, is there any hesitations that I may be able to ease over before you make decisions? And he just was kind of like the effort that you put in to come here without me asking, and the way you interacted with all the other departments at the fair kind of showed him everything that he needed to see. And he was like, you'll get a welcome email in the next couple of days. So, that was a really great feeling. Like, having that kind of pay off and just being, genuine and just looking for opportunities, not letting, putting my eggs kind of in all in one basket, and just it's kind of the networking started for me early on, like from serving to meet this guy that ended up helping me get an interview, and then that kind of not going so well, but getting it back. So it was a really good feeling.
So what does a typical day in the life look like for you at IMG?
That can definitely vary, but I think a typical day as an assistant coach. So an assistant coach coaches two teams usually outside of our national team coaches. So the national teams are kind of like the teams that everybody thinks about at IMG. We had Darius Acuff who's going to Arkansas. Um, our girls national team just won a championship. So outside of those coaches, where those are like small college programs, pretty much, I work with two teams. I work with one in the morning and one at in the afternoon. Um, I'm personally with middle school in the morning. We have girls, middle school, and JV in the morning, and like our varsity boys, they're going to school at that time, and then they kind of do a reverse in the afternoon. So my middle school, JV, and girls will go to school at that time. Varsity comes in. It's about 7:20 to 12ish around there. They have lunch, and then they come in for their sport activities. But it could be anything like practice. We could do workouts, which we call ascender sessions, which are small group workouts. They have weightlifting, leadership, nutrition, mental performance. So it's the
Wow,
closest thing to a college environment
that's
without
insane.
actually being in college. Yeah, man, it's like if I could, I just wish I could have went to IMG back in.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, we have everything, possible to help the kids be successful and, accomplish their goals. So it's a sports academy for sure, and one of the most prestigious sports academies in the world. And we have the resources to set these guys and girls up for success.
All right, so I'm gonna like stray off a little bit here. I thought this would be pretty fun just off based off of IMG's like alumni. So what is your all-time starting five? You have to build an all-time starting five for IMG basketball.
Sheesh. Okay, so I will say as a first year coach, I don't know everybody that like my peers are going to listen to this podcast and they're probably going to have a way different starting five than me. But if I could go back and think on some of my experiences, my center is definitely going to be Zach Edey.
Yeah, I was gonna say that
Definitely
too.
going to be Zach Edey. If we're counting varsity and post grad, I'm going to put Terrence Shannon Jr. in there somewhere, probably at shooting guard or small forward. Um, my point guard, I'm going to go with Darius Acuff. I
Okay.
can't think of a ton of their IMG point guards off the top of my head right now. I'm going with Darius Acuff, Zach Edey, Terrence Shannon Jr. Um, let's see, who else can I think of? Uh, Josh Green,
Okay.
and let's see, I need a wing. I need a wing. I'm gonna go. You know what? I'm gonna go Jarris.
Okay.
I'm gonna go Jarris, and I think that's a pretty good starting five.
Good
And
stuff.
again, I don't know all the other guys that like some of the other coaches know, because again, I'm still in my first year here, but we have really good relationships with those guys. They come in and they're really cool and they work their butts off, and it's really cool to see them when we have those big games like against Montverde. That was like eye-opening this year to me to see like ESPN come to the school and like now the game's on national television. I actually work that day, so I'm just like everybody else. I'm on my phone watching the game on ESPN while my coworkers are up in the stands, and like there's tons of people from this area and national scouting services at the Montverde versus IMG game. So it was really dope to see.
I'm surprised you didn't go Trayvon Duval or like Anthony Simons in your backcourt.
Those are some really good options. Like I said, off the top, that
Yeah.
was a good question. I should have thought about that. I'll have to do a deeper dive, and I
Didn't
might.
Michael Beasley go to IMG like back in the day?
I'm not 100% sure. I've never really heard his name, and we've had one of our coaches has been here since like the start of basketball at IMG, and I've never really heard him mention him, so I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
Anthony Simons is a great pick. I forgot about him, and it's funny because I did post grad the same year that he did post grad, and I remember he was like one of the first post grads to not go to like skip college and go to the
Yeah.
NBA just doing a post grad year. So I should have remembered him. That's a great pick.
No, I could be totally wrong about Michael Beasley though. I don't
I'll
know.
remember that one for sure.
You gotta find out for me. You gotta find out for me.
I'll make sure I do that. Yeah, no, there's people that have a long history at IMG, and when they listen to this, they're probably gonna be like, you might have some questionable picks, like because he's young, you don't know all the history. But off the top of my head, without thinking about it, that's what I'm gonna go with.
So, since you said you were in your first year, did you ever have like an eye-opening moment of like working in such like a high performance environment?
Um, yeah, I think the eye-opening moment for me, is like when you sit down and you look at our coaching staff and our administration. Um, the coaches that I work with is what makes kind of IMG such an awesome place. IMG is like the biggest think tank for basketball, like a coaching clinic every day. Like there's former Division I college coaches and even international coaches, coaches from all levels, former pros, stuff like that. So when I sat down and really looked at like the years of experience that my coaching staff has as a first year coach, that was like super cool to know that I'm working with coaches of that caliber and can ask them questions or bounce ideas off of them or watch these practices that they conduct, or always go to them if I need advice. I think that was the biggest thing. And then when you talk about just the athletes more so in general, the amount of care and attention to detail that they get from all aspects, like dietitian, mental performance. Have a bad game, there's a kind of a mental coach that you could go talk to. There's a strength and conditioning coach every day that has a plan for them. Just the number of coaches that are willing to work with them. And then when you talk about the high level elite talented kids that are on like the national team, seeing how they attack their process every day. Because I mean, it's basically there's two of our kids this year were like in the top 25, if I'm not mistaken, in rankings, just seeing how they attack their day, how that team kind of attacks their process of trying to win, a national championship in high school, which I could never, even fathom. Like I said, I went to a small school in the suburbs, and these guys are competing for national championships in high school.
Mhm.
That level of talent, seeing that is just it's crazy how they attack their day, and then just the all the coaches that we have here and looking at all their experience and being able to bounce ideas off of them, I think is a really eye-opening part of being a coach at IMG.
So as we both know, like being an assistant coach for a high school team or even a college team, it takes a lot of you have a lot to deal with that player development aspect, if I'm not mistaken. So what are some specific areas that you focus on when it comes to player development?
Some specific areas that I focus on when it comes to player development. When I think about player development, I would say it depends on the player and kind of, what their needs are for their individual development. Um, there's like there's things that are important, like skill acquisition,
Mhm.
helping out with mindset, and then like conditioning when you're thinking kind of about player development. So all three of those are kind of important. In some workouts, maybe one is more of a focus, and in different segments of a workout, maybe you work on all three. But I would say in most cases, I would do like skill based, working on skill acquisition on their strengths or weaknesses, again, depending on if it's in season or off season, and then definitely mindset, because that was big for me, which I feel like mindset encompasses like basketball IQ, feel for the game, just overall confidence. And we have a lot of opportunities for conditioning as in a team setting throughout our practices, and then also with our strength and conditioning coaches, but still mix it in some of the workouts when the time is right, and to challenge the mental and physical capacity of some of the players that I might be working out with.
Oh, I totally agree. Yeah, actually, so we're in the off season right now
Hmm.
at my school, and our coaches, you know how college basketball, there's like you can have 8 practices outside of the season. So
Yeah,
yeah, so
yeah.
we saved 4 practices for outside of the season now, and yesterday we had like individual workouts, and they wanted 2 guys at a time, like throughout the day, to come in and work out. So like mine, I'm like a wing, so it was like a lot of 3-point shooting, like working on
Hmm.
footwork, stup like that, and I'm trying to add like some post hooks in there as well, like trying to expand
Okay,
it
that's what's
more.
up.
But then the guards, we see the guard workouts totally different. A lot of like
Yeah.
moves, like pretending to simulating like coming off a screen, and then one
Mhm.
coach be standing in the corner working on that hook pass or like driving and kicking to so then they can work on their passing ability as well. And then
Mhm.
for the bigs, a lot of backboard touches, rim running.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah, definitely.
I totally agree. Yeah, it does like differ based on skill set. I totally agree. So, moving on. What since IMG is such like a competitive high school, what are some
Hmm.
of the biggest challenges of coaching there, and how do you overcome them?
That's a great question. And I think for me personally, like when I first got started, not only was it like you're at one of the most prestigious sports academies in the world, but this was like my first time being a coach. I just ended my playing career in May of 2023. Like I said, had different jobs that I helped kind of get here. But coaching was just something that, basketball in general was just something that kept calling me, and I finally answered that call. And I think when I first got here, like I faced almost an imposter syndrome. Like, how did I get to become a coach at such a prestigious academy as a young coach? Like, am I really fit for this? So, at first I was uncomfortable. I was really uncomfortable. But each and every day I got more confident in my skills and continued to work on my craft. Like the basketball side of me started to come out, at the player side of me started to come out, I should say. And like that's one thing I love about coaching is like you could work on your craft every day. Like it's not just a job where you punch in and out and you can't continue to work on your craft. Like I research things, I go on YouTube, I try to do stuff like this to help me develop and collect my thoughts and network with other people. So there's always skills that I can continue to work on. And I asked for help a lot. I was very upfront and vulnerable with like the coaches that I worked with this year, telling them about how I felt and, how can I become a better coach and start becoming more confident in these things. So just continue to invest in myself. And now the uncomfort that I was facing was just, I know now it was just me growing and I was just evolving. And now I kind of yearn for that uncomfortableness to kind of it helps me know that I'm growing and I'm in the right space and I'm taking the right steps because I want to keep growing and evolving as a coach.
So moving off of that question, we all have like a different definition of success. So
Hmm.
now as a coach and post-playing career, how do you define success when it comes to talking to your players? Because we both know it goes beyond just like the wins and losses and the X's and O's at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm definitely, more process based and outcome based. So it's really just them developing on and off the court as young men or young women. Them learning how to deal with adversity and on and off the court, learning how to become young men. Who will be fathers and husbands. I was blessed to start my family my senior year of college. So I have a wife and a daughter with one more on the way. So I'm kind of
Congratulations.
and thank you. I appreciate that. I'm young and just kind of got done playing, so I try to tell them how valuable like all the skills you learn through the game of basketball are as a husband, as a father, and just in your overall daily life because the ball does stop bouncing. I know it's hard to believe when you're playing, but it happens fast, and I think there's a transition that you have to make where you can get pretty down on yourself, especially if you feel like you didn't accomplish what you really wanted to accomplish,
I've
or
been
maybe you
there.
or maybe you have some like regrets, so just kind to show them that like one, there's more to it. Like you got to look at the bigger picture and the deeper picture because there's a lot of skills that are translatable and a lot of value that you learn from those experiences that help again in your everyday life, help you as a father, help you as a husband. So just seeing my players kind of grow and develop as hoopers and also young men. I'm not far in the journey, but I've seen kids make like progress in those areas this year, and I think that's been how I've defined success and how I've felt like I've made the most impact and how that's made me feel successful in my short coaching career thus far.
So now let's talk about your coaching style. What is it like for Coach E during a game? What's he like during a game?
Coach E during a game, as an assistant coach, it definitely took me a while to kind of find my feet. It was kind of weird, like just sitting there on the bench and not being able to get in the game, and you kind of have to transform your mindset. I would definitely say like I'm kind of I'll describe my coaching style as I like to be transformational. So, like, we talk about impacting lives on and off the court. And I think it comes from my playing experiences. And I would say I'm kind of like a player-centered coach because I just got done playing. So it was, I still carry that mindset of being a recent player. So naturally, I connect with my guys and I just ultimately try to be the coach that I wish I had. And, someone who sees the guys as people first and kind of helps them grow in areas that I might have struggled with as a player. um, and I had great coaches and mentors coming up, but I also recognize the things that could have made me and my experience better. So I try to fill in those gaps for my players too. And since I started coaching, my style has definitely evolved. Early on, I was still thinking like a player, wanting to relate and be kind of cool with the guys, but I quickly learned that it requires a different level of leadership now that I'm not one of the players anymore. I'm in the locker room, but in a different
Yeah.
capacity. So had to learn how to hold the players accountable in a coaching voice and in a coaching manner, even when it's uncomfortable, because we have such a good relationship you know, and understand that coaching them hard is just, a form of love. So now I lead, with empathy and like connection, but I also try to just bring structure, honesty, and, high standards every day.
That's funny you brought that up, like kind of like measuring that comfort level, because it makes me
Yeah.
think of my senior year. I had my assistant coach my senior year,
Mhm.
Coach Daly, he had just finished playing Division I basketball at UMass Lowell, and he went to
Okay.
Salisbury as well. So he came back to coach, and me and him, like I would give him like crap like all the time because he's like, what is he like? He's like probably like 5, 6 years older than me. You know what I mean? But like
Hmm.
that was my guy, and like our first year, like we lived together, and after the season, like he was getting me ready for college and stuff like that. And without him, like I wouldn't be like where I am today because
Yeah.
he taught me so much because he played the game at like the highest level of college
Hmm.
basketball. But now I talked to him on the phone last week, and he's like, "Yeah, man, like that shit that I was doing with you and all that stuff. Like we would sneak out and go get like Chinese food. We would
Uh-huh.
shoot. We would work out together. Like you literally spend like the whole afternoon." He's like, "Yeah, man, I'm not doing that with any of these guys anymore, man." He's like, I need
Yeah.
them to respect me. I was a first year guy. I had you like screwing around, doing whatever. I'm a
Mm.
good kid, don't get me wrong. We didn't get in trouble or do anything like crazy,
Yeah,
but it's
for
like
sure.
he needed to put that boundary up, like how you were saying,
Yeah,
even though it's like
yeah.
uncomfortable. Now he's the
Mm.
head coach now, so it has to be like even more over there.
Yeah, it's definitely like that. And I'll say from like a workout perspective, it's funny that you mentioned that, he was just trying stuff because like as a first year coach and you get some of these kids and it's like you're kind of the guinea pigs on what I see as like success or failure like in a drill. So, you probably helped shape a lot of the way that he does his player development and his interactions and relationships that, he moves forward with the kids. So I definitely can understand where he's coming from.
Yeah, like I remember like I would tag into like whatever like he's really into like lifting, especially now that he's done playing. So I was like, oh man, like I gotta come lift with you. So I would lift him every day and I started like he wears like tank tops and stuff. I started wearing like wife beaters with him. I started getting like my jug of water too. I looked like a mini him like walking around. It was hilarious. Everyone was like making fun of us. No, I'm if I, without him, I wouldn't be like where I am today, though. I could say though. So he was definitely one
And
of my greatest mentors I've ever had in my
that's
career so
what's
far.
up.
So moving on though, what's one thing that you honestly try to instill in in every player that you work with?
That's a good question. I think for me, one thing I try to instill in every player I work with is confidence because I think it's so key and not just like the level confidence, but like real mental fortitude. Because I think I struggled with like sports anxiety and shaky confidence as a player. So I know how much that can affect your performance. And I
Yeah.
also know what it feels like to, be in your own head, even when you're doing the right things physically, working out, getting in the gym, things of that nature. So as a coach, I try to be as intentional about, building my guys up mentally. Whether it's through film, positive reinforcement, just pushing them through, tough moments in practice or just pulling them inside and, reminding them that, you belong here. And, you told me what your goals are now, so I have to hold you to that standard. So don't start going back on the expectation or the standard or the goal that you set because you're facing adversity now. So, I want to try to just help walk every player, want every player to walk away from working with me feeling more sure of themselves, feeling more confident in their abilities. That doesn't mean that, I don't coach them hard, but it just means that I'll coach them with, belief because once a player believes in themselves, everything starts to click.
Are there any like coaches that you like look for inspiration? Like who's who are some coaches like famous and it could be NBA coaches or famous college coaches that you like look at and they're like, oh, this is how this guy runs a practice. Oh, this is how this guy does it on the sideline and stuff like that.
Yeah, I would say so, for me, honestly, it's been hard because you don't think about that as a player. Like you don't really like know a lot. So the coaches that I looked up to when I was playing were like John Calipari,
Yeah, that was the one I was gonna say.
Coach K. I was a big Kentucky fan. Tyler Ulis had went there. Anthony Davis. I'm a Chicago kid. So I don't have a lot of people that I had in mind originally when I first started this coaching journey, but now, coaches that come to mind that have, things that I think are very prominent, like Nate Oates, Ryan Pannone, um, still John Calipari. There's like how I try to attack my philosophies. I try to gain inspiration from all the guys that do things at a very high level. So I'm still learning a lot of coaches, and I would say I mainly draw inspiration and try to model like my coaching philosophy basically off of the coaches that I've worked with this year because that's kind of all I have to work off of is the people that I'm working with currently now. So I draw a lot of inspiration from them. I mean, ultimately, I'm still, working on, my actual philosophy is still growing, but it's shaped by a lot by, how I played. I wasn't the flashiest or most talented player. I was a defensive minded guy, like I said, strong work ethic, always in the gym and just trying to understand the game at the highest level. So on offense, I was just trying to make the right play, set my teammates up. So I value playing the game the right way, sharing the ball, respecting the game, and, kind of just doing the little things that don't always show up in the stat sheet. That was kind of what I was good for. So I kind of have that same mindset as a coach. I want my guys to be tough, selfless in their approach on offense, confident, always. And then I love defense. I'm a defensive minded coach, so coach defense hard, put a lot of energy into helping players build belief in themselves, especially when they're struggling, because I understand what that's like because I've been there. So, like I said, just draw a lot of inspiration from the head coaches that I worked with this year. And I'm still kind of building my philosophy like one day at a time and really trying to figure out, what coaches that I can look up to now outside of the coaches that I'm working with that'll really help me, and what tidbits are small pieces of their philosophies or what they have offensive or defensively that I can take with me and kind of make my own.
So this leads me into my final question, my last question. So if you look 5 or 10 years down the line, where do you see yourself in your coaching career?
That's a good question. And it's actually something that we do here at IMG and like our kind of professional development as coaches. Um, I would say when I think about like 5 years from now, it's really, a man of faith. So, whatever God has in store for me is where I'll be. I have ideas or kind of goals of, where I want to be that I'll strive for and I'll pray over. But ultimately, God will decide what's best for, my family and me. And I definitely aspire to probably be at the collegiate level or in the professional coaching world somehow. I mean, even in 5 years, I could be a head coach at IMG rather than an assistant. So that would be cool. I wouldn't be too mad at that. But I've also been really liking the idea of like becoming certified to coach overseas. So like been diving deeper into EuroLeague basketball, CBA. That doesn't sound like a bad idea. So like using basketball to kind of explore the world was always a dream of mine. I wanted to play. Being a Division III basketball player, I don't think, you still want to have something to shoot for. NBA might not be necessarily the goal, but like there's a lot of Division III guys at that time that were going overseas and playing in, mid to high level overseas leagues. So that was my goal as a player, pushing myself towards that. So wanting to play overseas now to potentially coach over there, I think that'd be a dope experience. And I think it would be something that would, um, even be beneficial for my family. Like I think that they would thoroughly enjoy that as well.
100%. Well, Coach Elijah, thank you so much for coming on the show today, and I wish you the best of luck going forward.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to, discuss all this with me and have this conversation.
Thanks for listening to Gen Z Hoops. Make sure to follow, like, and subscribe on Instagram, LinkedIn, and all major social media platforms at Gen Z Hoops. You can tune in and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and every other podcast platform on the planet. Get ready for the next episode.